Good morning, everybody. So today I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. Although I'm going to kind of bridge the gap between the stuff I usually discuss. So I was watching this channel that Chris Hansen is on. You know, good old Chris Hansen from To Catch a Predator. And he's doing his same old thing. You know, catching guys after young girls, underage girls on the dating sites and stuff. But something occurred to me that I don't think many other, if you're not really involved with how the legal system works, you wouldn't necessarily pick it up. So what happened is the guy comes in, the guy they're catching, and Chris tells him to sit down. And then at that point, the sheriffs come and pat the guy down for weapons. The dude they're catching, he said, "Can't I just go?" And Chris says no. That's a problem, okay? That's custodial, right? He's in their custody. If he can't leave and he's under arrest for all intents and purposes, he's had guns pointed at him, he's been patted down for weapons, he's in custody. How come he was never given his Miranda warning? I think they're just faking it now. I don't think Chris is actually catching predators. I think he is hiring actors to play parts, because none of the way that they did that would stand up in court. And what's the point of doing it if it doesn't stand up in court? And how are you just how is a news guy, an actor, utilizing the sheriff's department in such a way that violates the sheriff's department's protocols? That's weird. Yet they present it as though it's a real thing. But isn't it? I mean, here's the thing. If he's not under arrest, then what right did Chris have to tell him that he can't go? And if he is under arrest, why is Chris forcing him to stay and talk? Because when you're under arrest and when you're not under arrest, you have the right to remain silent. I get that Chris isn't a cop, but he is being questioned, which will probably be used as evidence. He's being questioned in the presence of cops by what's essentially a third-party contractor. That's the same thing. He would need to have his Miranda rights read to him, especially if Chris is saying that he can't leave. So how does this go? Is this kidnapping, or is it fake? What is going on? And so it just goes to show even further that the things that are presented as reality are oftentimes just a well-crafted stage play. Not even that well-crafted sometimes. Think about, oh man, it's so sad that people believe it. Think about Trump. Well, try not to. I try not to. But remember when he put that pad on his ear, and then he took it off a couple of weeks later and his ear had no damage? Dude, they don't even care. They don't care if you see the lies. You know why? It's because they know that, and I'm quoting Lucifer, Apocalyptical right now, they won't believe you until it's far too late. Nobody's going to believe you that it's faked because they trust their gods. They trust their political gods more than they trust you. Think about this. People, I'm sure people that you know, trust a stranger, Donald Trump, it doesn't matter who, Joe Biden. They trust strangers who steal from them more than they trust their family. If family comes up and says, hey, you know what, I think that they might be lying, they will trust the politician over their family member. That's worship. It's just worship. And we can't really improve anything as long as we have most of the nation worshiping the criminal class. You know, you can call them the elite class, but really what they are is the organized crime class. And until we start calling it what it is and just admitting and accepting that we've been overtaken by the mafia, a certain ethnic mafia, nothing's going to change, because we're still going to go back to the same people, expecting the same people to affect change in our lives when they're the ones that cause the problems. Now, that has nothing to do with Chris Hansen, but needed to be said, so it got said. I just implore you, realize that most things that you see on a screen, believe it about me if you want. I don't care. I'd rather you believe that I am just an actor than trust the people who I know to be actors, right? And actor's a loose term. It just means somebody who's up there playing a part that doesn't really reflect their own beliefs. You know, what they do, and I spoke about this in relation to the Epstein versus the alien files for Trump. What they do is it's just sleight of hand. When Trump says, yeah, they're all central casting, he's talking about himself, dude. Why do you think he has a Hollywood, a star on Hollywood Boulevard? See, here's the thing. This relates to the simulation aspect that I discussed yesterday. We don't live in the reality that we're presented, or that's the wrong way to say it. We're presented a reality that we don't live in, because think about every false event that has gone into constructing modern life. Let's just start at Kennedy. Okay? We are a nation built on mourning of a president who, did he really get shot? Were you there? Sure, we've got video. That video took 10 years to come out. How hard would it be to fake it? It wouldn't be hard. Hollywood's been around for far longer than that, doing far more impressive fakery than that. So, we got that affected young children in 1963 so greatly, you know, because their parents worshipped this guy. Their parents worshipped Kennedy, and then he was splattered all over the back of the car. And that affected people. And then the moon landing happened, which these and other things we will do by the end of the decade. Kennedy, the guy who was splattered all over the back of the car, predicted moon landing before the end of the decade. And what do you know? In 1969, that crook managed to get a phone call on a landline from men on the moon. You know that didn't happen, right? So that's another thing that has built up the American spirit. It's based on a lie. So these are all simulations. And once you strip all of them away, 9/11's official story, for instance, the fear of terrorism coming, and the fear of shoe bombers, that formed the personalities of people. All of these things, all of these lies that have been told aren't just lies that have been told. They are bits of people's personalities. They are bits of people's realities. And what they've built is essentially a golem that is nothing more than a mouthpiece for the establishment. That's most people. The really sad part is that it's gotten to such a point where they'll believe such absurdities that they actually think that it's better to allow a group of government stooges to kill Americans than to let brown people be in their cities. That's fucking crazy, man. That's fucking nuts. If you don't like bad words, deal with it. Because I guarantee those who would speak ill of bad words support far worse things than words. There's a new album, I'm not sponsored, by the way, but there's a new album by the band Pussifer, which is the singer from Tool, and it's really more his music in Pussifer and his thoughts and his words, and I appreciate it greatly. He came out with a new album called Normal Isn't, and it's kind of like this 80s mock-up of goth metal, and it's just fantastic. But a lot of the songs have a whole lot of truth, but it's hard to digest unless you're already there. I am astounded at how easily people swallow bullshit. It's almost like they prefer bullshit over truth. And I don't get that. I'll never get that. I don't want to be lied to. I would rather an inconvenient truth, fuck you, Al Gore, over a convenient lie. Have a fantastic day.